Welcome to the first day of summer physics. In this series of videos, we will be looking at the same material that's covered during the first day of lecture. So the first day of lecture includes a look at the syllabus and class policies, and then we start looking at some of the math tools we'll be using for the rest of the course, some measurements and units that are important, and then we'll start looking at some of the first physics topics, such as coordinates and speed. So in this first video, we'll be looking at some class particulars, policies, the syllabus, and some of the materials that you'll need in the class. So many of the class resources are posted on Learning Hub, and you can see the website address for Learning Hub, which is learninghub.andrews.edu. This is where you'll find anything that's handed out in class and many other kinds of materials as well. So the course textbook is available on Learning Hub as a PDF. It's also possible to buy physical copies of the book if you're more comfortable learning that way. But you should keep in mind that a PDF copy of the textbook can be downloaded from Learning Hub. Learning Hub is also the place where the homework is posted and submitted. It's where lecture slides and study materials are located, and all of the lab information is located there as well. So there are lab instructional videos, instructions, and the location where you submit your labs. You'll also use Learning Hub to submit your iClicker registration. So the iClickers will be used to vote on questions that are posed during the class period. And in order to have your iClicker associated with your name, you'll need to put your iClicker number into Learning Hub. And I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. So just to reiterate, the materials that you'll need for the class are a textbook, which you can either download from Learning Hub or purchase a physical copy. You'll need an iClicker and a scientific or graphing calculator. Now there are a few different generations of iClicker devices that have been manufactured over the years, and any of these will work for the class. So if you have an original generation iClicker, that's fine. The iClicker Plus and the iClicker 2 will work as well. For every generation of iClicker, there should be a sticker on the back with a barcode, and underneath that barcode is an identification number. If you have the iClicker 2, the identification number will also pop up when you first turn the device on. So this identification number uniquely identifies your iClicker device. In some cases, if you've bought your iClicker used, the identification number may have rubbed off, or the sticker may have fallen off. And in that case, we can still figure out what your identification number is. So you'll need to see me, so when you vote, your number will show up on my system, and then I can tell you what the number is so that you can enter it in. So let's try going to the class page for Learning Hub. So this is what Learning Hub looks like. This is the class page that you will see when you log in. Learning Hub will be available when you register for the course and when the summer semesters are available. So you'll notice that this is actually the page from a previous year, but it should look very similar. So when you have your iClicker identification number, you will enter it by clicking on this student registration link, and that will take you to a place where you can enter the number in. And you can see also here posted some information on the class, the course syllabus, a document that describes the laboratory expectations and the grading rubric for lab submissions. Then there's also a schedule of activities that we'll be doing throughout the course, and the link to a PDF copy of the textbook. You'll also notice that other class materials, such as the lecture slides and laboratory submission, as well as homework submission, is also available on Learning Hub. So if you have any questions about any of these materials and getting onto Learning Hub, please don't hesitate to email me your questions. So the next thing we should do is take a look at the course syllabus. and some of the policies and things that are described there. So I won't read the syllabus to you. You should take a copy of it and read it more thoroughly yourself, but I just want to highlight a few things that will be important as we go through the course. So the first important thing is the schedule information for the course. You can see that we will be having class from 8 to noon, Mondays through Fridays. And we will, in the afternoons, we'll be having lab and something called small group learning, or SGL. So the lab times will depend on what laboratory section you're registered for. If you're registered for lab section 1, then you'll attend lab from 1 to 3:25, and then you will attend a small group learning session from 3:30 to 5 p.m. If, on the other hand, you are registered for the lab section 2, then you will attend lab from 3:30 to 6 p.m. and your small group learning session will meet from 2 to 3:25 p.m. So in these small group learning sessions, you'll be working on some problems in groups, and these are also opportunities to get assistance from the class learning assistants and TAs on homework or any other questions that you may have. So next I have my contact information, my telephone number and email address. The best way to get a hold of me is by email, and you'll notice that there will also be a lab instructor who has yet to be decided. So next we have the course description and the course materials, which we've pretty much already covered. The fact that you'll need the textbook, either in electronic or physical form, and a clicker. So the next section covers some program outcomes. So there are some physics department outcomes. These are our learning goals for you in the physics department, and these learning goals apply to all courses that are taught in the physics department. And then there are some student learning outcomes that are particular to this course. So next I want to highlight some things regarding topics and different assignments and components of the course. So first off, we'll take a look at the homework, and I'll just highlight a few things about the homework. So the homework is assigned and submitted online at Learning Hub, and there's an assignment due every day of class at midnight, except for on Fridays. The Friday assignments are due actually on Sundays. So each assignment is related to material covered the day before. So the homework assignments are due at midnight, but if you have an excused absence or need more time to complete a homework assignment, you can request an extension, and extensions must be requested within 48 hours of a due time and used within 48 hours of the time they are granted. So to request an extension, you should just send me an email and I can put that in to Learning Hub. Also in class, we will be doing in-class problems. These are worksheets that are assigned during class and are completed within the class time. So it's expected that you will work with your neighbors to complete these assignments, but each student will turn in their own assignment. The small group learning periods are in the afternoon, and during those small group learning periods there are assigned problems to work on, which you'll complete in groups, and then the learning assistants that are in the room will discuss with you your solutions to those problems and give you credit for completing them. So the student response participation section, this describes the clicker use. So the clickers will be used to answer questions that are posed during the lecture, and you will be given credit for voting. So this is kind of important. You aren't given credit for getting the answer right. You're just given credit for putting in an answer. And the reason why this is done is that research has shown that students get more out of the process of answering clicker questions if they don't get credit for getting it right, but just get credit for entering an answer. Because If you get credit for just entering your answer, then you enter the answer that you have thought about most instead of what your clever neighbor next to you thinks. So you'll be given credit for answering each question. And if you are arriving late to the class, the days that you haven't been able to attend the class, those won't count against you. If you have to miss class, or if you have an excused absence, or sometimes clicker batteries can fail, or you can leave them in your room. So for that reason, 3 days worth of voting is forgiven to cover those circumstances. Now, it's very important that you use your own clicker only and that you don't enter answers in for your friends. So if your friend leaves the room and leaves their clicker behind, it is not okay to use their clicker to enter a response to make it seem like they are still there. So labs are held during the afternoons, and just a few important things having to do with labs. First off, if you're going to lab, if you have lab on a certain day, you need to wear closed-toed shoes. So no sandals in the laboratory. In addition, there is no eating or drinking allowed in laboratories as well. So the final important thing to know about labs is that for each lab there is a lab video. And the lab video takes you through the steps of the lab, describes the physics that you're testing, and then also shows you how to use the equipment and the software that you need to use to complete the lab. So it's really important to watch those videos ahead of the lab times so that you're prepared at the start of lab and you can dive right into the work instead of sitting around and wondering what it is you should be doing. So make sure you watch those lab videos ahead of the lab time. For quizzes and exams, a quiz is given every day of class except for on Fridays. And the first day of class is actually no exception. There is a quiz given at 8 a.m. on the first Monday of class. Now don't worry too much about this first quiz. The first quiz collects demographic information and information about your registration, so we know which students to help who've had difficulties registering. So the quizzes on the other days will pertain to material discussed in class, and these quizzes are open book, open notes. Now it's important to realize that the quizzes do start at 8 a.m., and if you're more than 10 minutes late to class, then you will not be given the opportunity to take the quiz. However, there are 3 dropped quizzes, so if you accidentally sleep in one morning, it should still be okay. Now on Fridays, there are no quizzes because on Fridays we have exams. There is an exam every Friday. If you are arriving late to class and have had to miss the first few days, that first exam will be scheduled on a later Sunday. So not the first Sunday after the first week of class, but the Sunday after the second week of class. So you will have some time to study for it. In these exams, you can bring an 8.5 by 11-inch piece of paper, so a regular sheet of paper, both sides, anything you wish to write upon it. And you can have 2 such pieces of paper on the final. So there also will be an online course evaluation. I will make an announcement towards the end of the semester when that evaluation needs to be completed. So next in the syllabus we have the schedule, what we will be covering each day in class, and what sections of the book that material pertains to. And you'll notice that also listed are the tests, which occur on every Friday, and what material the tests are over. So you'll notice that the first test will cover the first 3 days of class, and subsequent tests will cover from a Thursday to a Wednesday. The final exam is the only thing that happens on the final day of class, and the final exam is cumulative. And on Memorial Day there will not be any class or labs or SGL activities. So next we have the grading weights, how the grade for the class is calculated, and the grading scale that is used. And in the next section are outlined some class policies. These are standard policies for all classes offered by the College of Arts and Sciences. So the first policy has to do with email. It's really important that you check your email, and your Andrews email specifically, because that's where any announcements will go. So next talks about the use of technology during class time. Some students like to have the class notes, since I make them available on Learning Hub, they like to have those notes open on an electronic device to follow along. And that's fine. But other uses of electronic devices like cell phones and laptops should be limited, since they can distract you during the class, reduce the amount you learn, and can be a distraction to the people sitting around you. Now, disability accommodations, this is very important. If you qualify for any sort of disability accommodation, then you should contact Student Success, and an email address is given here. You should also let me know so that I can make sure that you have what you need to be successful in the class. So next is some other class policies that you should read through, although it mostly basically just says come to class, which is important. Then there are some laboratory session policies, when labs are due, and some policies regarding the format that the labs should be in. There is a laboratory expectations document that is included on Learning Hub and in the materials I'm supplying to those who have to arrive late. And you should read those for a complete description of what goes into laboratory reports. There are also some policies listed for the small group learning sessions, particularly that you should be on time and what to do in the case that you miss a small group learning session for any reason. So the next page of the syllabus is regarding academic integrity, which of course is very important. And you should read this section carefully. You'll note that there are standards that faculty should follow, as well as standards that students should follow in all of their coursework. The emergency protocol is important to note. If you need any information, let me know regarding emergency situations and protocols. And then in the final sections of the syllabus, you'll see that we have a laboratory rubric. So this is a synopsis of how your labs will be graded. So when you perform a lab, you will keep a laboratory electronic journal, or e-journal, and you'll submit this e-journal as your laboratory report. You can see here is listed the things that should be in your e-journal, and as well a description of what needs to be present in order to get full points for each section. So your lab TAs will actually use this laboratory rubric when they are grading your laboratory reports. The laboratory rubric, besides being included in the syllabus, is also included in the document that describes more fully what each of these components are and what they should include. And finally, in the syllabus, we have a credit hour declaration that specifies, since this is a class happening at a non-standard time during the summer, how the hours are divvied up between the different sections of the class. So this concludes our first video and the materials that you'll need, as well as some of the class policies. If you have questions about any of these things that I've presented, please send me an email at tzs@andrews.edu. In the next video, we'll be taking a look at some of the mathematical tools that we will be using throughout the course.